have this belief that, you know, government's there to protect us, and that government's there to provide for us, and basically be our mommy and daddy, at least to some degree. And that's really not what the purpose of government's for. Like, the purpose of government is to protect our liberties and allow us to take a responsibility for our own lives. And I think that's, I mean, if you really want to talk about the divide, you're asking why there's such a big divide. When you have an institution that has so much control over reality, so say somebody believes that smoking marijuana is okay. And let's say somebody else believes that it's not. Hey, Megan. Hey, and by the way, if anybody wants to like actually contribute to the conversation, you're more than welcome to. So there's like a blue state, maybe they want to legalize marijuana, right? And maybe there's like another state that doesn't want to, right? Well, because so much stuff is controlled from Washington, D.C., I mean, technically, marijuana is still illegal on a federal level, right? When one person sees somebody else advocating for a freedom that they don't want themselves and their own local culture to have, all of a sudden that person is now seen as the enemy because they're asking the government to use force to force you to do what you want to do, or vice versa. Whereas if that institution wasn't so powerful in the first place, then these two people could coexist. It reminds me of during the Ron Paul campaign back in 2008. So for those of you who don't know, I actually basically ran Ron Paul's campaign here in 2008 in South Dakota. But you had hippies that wanted to smoke dope right next to gun-toting, conservatives who like guns, and they all get along with each other because liberty brings people together. But if you don't have that, then all of a sudden, and you're making laws restricting what people are able to do, then those two groups of people are pitted against each other. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, because the idea that we can coexist, it's that we just seem to coexist, and we coexist by clashing at this ideology. I believe this, you believe that. We can't, even though we're here, we're not at each other's throats, but we are in a way.
Being able to be tolerant of other people's lifestyles and views means that we're not asking the government to ban things that we don't like, and vice versa. And I think that philosophy is one of the things that causes people to maybe feel like you're my enemy if you don't agree with me. Because when it comes to, because laws come with government force, laws come with guns back them. So
and jail cells
and
fines,
threat of life and death and imprisonment.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Yeah, Pursuit of Happiness. Originally, you're right. It was based on the Lockean belief of life, liberty, and property. Yeah, and Benjamin Franklin kind of tweaked that a little bit.
You don't get property.
Read the whole comment out loud.
The Pursuit of Happiness was a change. It was originally life, liberty, and property. So. Yeah, you're right. Jefferson's Declaration of Independence was a little bit of a tweak from that.
The struggle I find is that we want those laws. We want these things. We want to be happy here. We want to find life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, property. And yet we still struggle with the difference between fundamental law, like not killing somebody just in cold blood to kill somebody, right? You accidentally hurt somebody or harm somebody because a conversation we will be getting into soon, but my life is threatened, taking a life, I'm not trying to do that, but that's now looked at as, I am being to some great detriment, where, you also have a bunch of just these things that we can't seem to come together with. And I'm a little lost for words. I'm usually not, but I'm at a loss for words in this.
Laws are not morality. They're two different topics. I believe that the original intention of a law was morality, like original laws about, protection, don't kill, that kind of thing. I do believe the original intent behind laws was based in morality, but over time it stopped being about morality. It started being the devil in the details. It started being about digging so deep. Okay, now that we know what's safe, let's use these laws to force an agenda. And it evolved. But I'm always of the belief that the laws aren't going to change things. They're just a slap on the wrist. A law without a punishment behind it is just a formally worded suggestion, right? Without a consequence for breaking it, it's just words. So the reality is laws are about punishment. And if we helped people develop and grow in morality, they're not going to want to break the laws. Right now, we're treating laws like they're supposed to be a deterrent, like they're supposed to be something that's going to change somebody's mind. But the reality is, if somebody's heart and mind is set on murder, they're not going to care. They're just going to try and hide it. So we have to help people.
Legalize murder, everybody. We'll have less of it. Sorry.
There's a comedian who does that bit. That's brilliant.
So, what we really need to do is help people change their hearts and minds to not need a law to put them in check. And so I feel like our focus into laws is just misplaced frustration.
It is. And that's your point about how law is backed by punishment. That's one reason why there should only... We need to think. One of my biggest pet peeves, I guess, is when somebody says there ought to be a law. It's like, well, is that really worth putting somebody in a cage for? Is that really worth shooting somebody and killing them if perhaps they don't want to go into that cage, right?
Because they're not going to go if they don't want to.
Right, and so, is this thing that you really think there should be a law about, does that actually justify killing somebody? Even something as innocuous as a stop sign, is at the end of the day backed by threat of force. And stop signs are great. I'm not saying they're not great.
They're out of a place of safety and protection.
They're there to help society figure out whose turn it is to do things.
But if you're at an empty intersection, nobody's around you, and you run the stop sign, should you be given a fee for it?
Yeah,
it's a mortal sin.
Right, right. So that's the thing. One of the other things that for me bothers me is just kind of sloppy thinking in general. Like, we'll just talk about the police thing here because it's an example that's relevant for today. But one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of is, for example, Minneapolis just decided to defund their police department because of what's been going on. I'm not going to make any judgments of whether that's a good thing or a bad thing in this conversation, but what I'm seeing a lot of is conservatives saying that that's a bad idea. And they're not saying why it's a bad idea, they're just saying it's a bad idea because that's what communists want. So because the left thinks it's a good idea, it's automatically a bad idea. And for me, as somebody looking on the outside of that, it's like, well, maybe there are better ways of dealing with security in the world than, and so, and then you see the same thing on the left. So sloppy thinking is one of the things that really bothers me is, if somebody says something, if you don't like what they're saying because you don't like them as a person, that's not a logical reason to disagree with somebody. We call that ad hominem. And that would be something to look up. I'd encourage all of you to kind of look those things up, the logical fallacies that, there's
a long list of them.
There's a long list of them, but one of the ones I see a lot is like the straw man, where you instead of attacking the thing that you don't agree with, you attack something else and pretend that that's the thing you don't agree with. Red herrings. There's just a lot of I guess this is the plea for me to say, I don't really mind if you disagree with me. You can just, I don't even mind if you agree with me, right? But if you disagree with me or agree with me, do it based on the logic and the reason and thinking things through clearly, as opposed to...
Here's why I agree.
Yeah.
I used to have a grandmother who was nosy. I used to think that was my police force because I didn't know any better. But you all, and I don't mean a generalization, but you know who you are when you used to get mad or you used to get frustrated at your neighborhood crazy person, because that's what we used to call them. But they were just aware of things in ways that we would know. They're the ones that we used to make jokes out of, that are outside with binoculars looking at your neighbors, trying to spy on everybody, see what's going on. Right? But in days like these, where we consider whether or not having police force is even viable anymore because of the lack of training, because of the lack of consideration of their position and the impact that they have, we now look at people who are saying, oh, well, now criminals are going to come by, and it's like, says who? Are you not looking in your neighborhood? Do you not know your neighbor? Do you not know the people down your street? Do you not have responsibility for your own safety?
Hi, Sadie.
These are questions that I've always looked, because my grandmother was paranoid. But in her paranoia, she developed in me a sense of awareness, questioning my surroundings, learning and getting to meet people, having an understanding
Perhaps
of
just a healthier interpretation.
Yeah, right. And mind you, and that's probably a better way to put it. It's much healthier. I don't read everything and believe everything I read, but I am responsible for my safety. Even when I bike. So I don't bike with a helmet. And you can think whatever you'd like. I've had many of people I've worked for, worked with, spoken to, look at me like I'm crazy. Like, oh, you must be the one, huh? You must be the one. You're not going to get hurt by anybody. That's not the case. I come from skateboarding. Skateboarding background. If you are not aware of your surroundings, you are going to hurt yourself. I've hurt myself a lot. While I am biking, I don't bike as if other people are going to watch me. Just as when I walk up and down the street, no matter where I'm going, be it Stewart in Desert Inn in Las Vegas, Nevada, if you know where that is, Naked City on the other side, but if you know where that area is, you know that neighborhood. You don't walk up and down that street like you're not paying attention. Bad stuff happens there all the time. But it's only going to happen if you're not paying attention, if you're not aware of your circumstances. So just in the same way, not having the police force doesn't really mean anything. It just means that hand or thumb that is over you is removed. So yes, you're exposed in a way, but that is also freedom, because now you have responsibility for you. Now you have to start getting to know your neighbors. You start having to build community awareness. You now are forced organically, almost, really, to create these foundations.
To create your own security.
To create your security. And all it has to do with is saying hi. Hey, next door neighbor, here's some muffins. Never met you before. You know what I mean? But that's
real bonds, as opposed to the artificial bonds that politics creates.
I've given out a lot of muffins in my day.
Sadie makes a comment here too, that she struggles with making friends due to being overly analytical sometimes. Yeah, I feel that. Sadie, I do feel that sometimes.